Well, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm Georgia Neekin, and I'm one of the licensed practitioners here at Center for Spiritual Living, White Rock. And we're an inclusive learning center of practical spirituality based in Metro Vancouver, Lower Mainland, British Columbia, Canada. This is a place for your whole heart. May you find refuge here. May you discover spiritual truth that uplifts and inspires you. May we all join together in co-creating a loving, vibrant world that works for all. As we begin our gathering today, I respectfully acknowledge that I live and work on the traditional unceded territory of Kwantlen and Katzie here in Pitt Meadows. Let us now ground our time together in truth and spirit, and I ask you to turn within as I do this short invocation. As we know this oneness and this allness that is in back of all, this wondrous divine power, this divine intelligence, and the spirit that is us, as us, for us. And as we are here together, all gathered on this screen, the screen melts as we take in that breath and know that we are here in that one breath, that one mind, that one spirit. And I welcome each and every one of us and you and your friends and your family that stand behind you and with you. And as we walk each other home today in knowing this wisdom, the spirituality, this sense of wholeness and awe, I'm thankful for all of this. And I'm opening this center today with open arms and open heart. And please join me in saying, and so it is. What a day. I'd love to, our live musician today is one of our favorite guys, wonderful, talented Ranj Singh. The richness of his vocals and warm depth of his message always opens the heart. Ranj makes music with a distinct Indian Western flair, and oh my goodness, it just rocks my soul. And it draws on his love for rock music and heartfelt lyrics. He refers to his unique blend of music as Indo-Canadian folk. Please join me in welcoming Ranj Singh.
Thanks, Georgia. It's been a rough week. I lost my mom last week. I was debating whether I should play today. Then music is good for the soul. It heals, so I'm here. And you folks always make me feel good, so I'm proud to be here. It's been too damn long to be without your embrace. Trying to stay strong, to carry on, keeping pace. Take me back to a time when our life was all entwined with innocence and love. Take me back to those days, those extraordinary days where we laughed so loud. Wish I could replay all them days right from the start, 'cause words cannot explain, will never ease this pain deep in my heart. Just give me back one more day so I can hear your voice again. and share with you a smile. Just give me back a little time so I can stand there by your side, if only for a while. Memories will be saved. Just wish I could have waved one last goodbye. I hope you found your peace. I'll wait for you in my dreams these restless nights. These restless nights. These restless nights.
Oh, you can get his music. I know you can get Ranj Singh's music. Maybe it could be put on the chat screen because I have some of it and I play it. It just so, like I said, touches my soul. So I'd now like to it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Rev Ruth Littlejohn. She is an ordained religious science minister for Centers for Spiritual Living. As an active member of New Thought community since 1992, she has served in many capacities, including founding a center in Virginia Beach. Her vision is to communicate, facilitate, and inspire wholeness. Currently, Rev Ruth provides coaching, spiritual executive, diversity and inclusion and life, an affinity group facilitation for women of color. And she partners with Rev Champion Fleming, who facilitates affinity groups for white women and non-binary folks. Affinity groups for men of color and white men will be available soon. Please join me in welcoming Rev Ruth Littlejohn.
Good morning and thank you. My gratitude to Reverend Cassandra, who's celebrating her birthday, for the generous invitation to have a conversation with the community this morning. So thank you for having me. And I'm knowing our time together is already blessed. So let's move from that standpoint. Before we get going, I'd like to do a couple of things that I find is helpful in just acknowledging what's going on in the world. And so before I begin, I'd like for us to take a moment of silence, really to honor all of the bodies, brown and black, people who've been killed, and for those responsible for their death, and for those who've lost their lives as a result of COVID. And we certainly include Rand's mother as we take this moment of just silence, of honoring these lives that have been right here on this plane as they move on a powerful journey. For this golden opportunity and this time, we're grateful, and so it is. One of the things that I'd like to do is give us a chance to be settled. It feels like you were settled and then I gave you a little unsettled, but we're going to go back into settling our bodies. And this comes from a book that we've used, My Grandmother's Hands. And what I'm going to ask us to do is we're going to breathe 3 times, in and release. And then we're all going to ohm together. Now, I know we cannot unmute our systems, but just that ohming, you'll feel it in the very inside of your body, just settling you down. So let us take a moment to do that. Simply breathing in and releasing. Again. And releasing. And again. And let us ohm together. Om. So simply being present to the vibration of our bodies as we settle in for our conversation this afternoon, this morning. I'm in Virginia Beach, Virginia, so it's afternoon here. And my message this morning is about living boldly. It's about seeing a new world that begins with me. And so as I think about our message, I know you've been reading Dr. Ruth's book on mindful of race. And so I'll talk a bit about how that has impacted me also. And as I think about this conversation, I want to dedicate my message, our conversation this morning, to two of my ancestors, my grandfather, Johnson Littlejohn, and my mother, Hazel Littlejohn Haley Moore. Because I know I stand on their shoulders this morning as I speak with you. And the thing that they shared with me that I continue to live with is a sense of giving, a sense of honoring other people, a sense of planning, and a sense of risk taking. And so I know that lives through me as a result of their experience. Their early teachings have stayed with me throughout my life, and I've taken some of them to heart. And so when I say that, one of the things that they were very strong on is going to church. So in our family growing up, probably if you didn't go to church, you didn't do anything else. I don't know if that was just my family, but that's how it was. And so that still is very strong in me. Even though I've changed the direction, I still am committed to the spiritual path. So a couple of things happened in my life as I've moved around that had me really start to take that risk taking that I got from my grandfather and my mother to heart. And so one of the things was in March of 1987, I was living in Philadelphia, and there was a program called the Landmark Education, which was way, it's way out there. But something about the risk taking got my attention. And so that's when I decided to enroll. Again, looking at how to live boldly and how it began with me. So what did I need to do in order to shift who I was being? So that took me to a whole new place in my life where it allowed me to reconnect with my father and to just look at life differently, just totally differently as a result of that experience. And then in June of 1992, another opportunity to take a great risk. And that was when I walked into a Science of Mind community in Philadelphia called Psalm Place. And I remember as I walked through the door, the song that was playing is "It's a Brand New World." And for me, it really was a brand new world. For I heard Reverend Bruce, who's a minister, say that we are all divine, magnificent children of God, that we're here representing, that we are the God presence, and that there was nothing that I could ever do or say that would negate me being whole and complete. I mean, that was revolutionary to me. There's nothing I could ever say or do that would negate me being whole and complete. And so that really got my attention. It's like, my goodness, this is a new way of living, a new way of starting a life. And so as a result of that, I started to look at, like, who am I in the midst of all of this new way of thinking? And it relates a bit to this, in this month's Science of Mind magazine, Dr. David Alexander talks about this holy war of us uprising, of us getting together to really look at this whole idea of slavery and colonialism. How do we deal with that? How do we let that go? How do we heal the separation? And so it reminds me of the question that Ruth King asked in Mindful Race. What does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with me? So I had to look at, like, who am I being in the midst of all of this? Yes, I've lived a blessed life, but who am I being in the midst of all of this? And as an African-American woman living in America, I have certainly internalized much of what I've heard unconsciously. So my work was to get to know really who am I, and what are some of the things I've done, and how does it impact my internalized oppression? And so that has been the journey. How do you do that? How do you get in touch with that? And what does that mean? And so one of the things that Reverend Champion and I have partnered around is creating safe spaces for people to do that. I'm doing it for myself and then also for women of color, and Reverend Champion is doing it for white women, really looking at unpacking the conditioning, our thinking, what we believe, and what it is for us to do. So that's sort of how that all evolved. But what I got clear is I need to do my own work before I could help anyone else. So I started to look at what's been going on in my life all these years. What are the kinds of things that I have accumulated? Who am I? And so I started to just sort of think about if I took everything that's been happening up until 1992 and put it in a blender. Of course, I'm a prop person, so I'm going to have a blender. Imagine I put it into a blender. And these are some of the things that I had experienced during that time. Because see, my goal is for me to get clear who I am so I can know who's doing the work. And so some of the things I put into my blender is that I have been successful at work. Be honest with you, I didn't like my legs. Growing up, I was 5'10" and had skinny legs. And I also get teased about that. So that was one thing I did not like. So these are some of the things that I've accumulated. I had some success at work. I'd flunked out of college. Ooh, I've gotten fired off of a job. I've moved around in the world. I've been successful in some jobs. I had advanced degrees. There were times that I felt I was not enough. I'd been helpful in my community. I'd been very visible. I had very supportive family. I had had some failures and been very successful. So this was sort of like everything that had happened to me over those years. And so since I'm going to start to begin to change my life, I want to see what do I need to do with it? What does it look like? So if you can imagine putting something like this in a blender, and let's say I was going to get a sundae, I think it would be a little crazy looking sundae, be a little confused, be multicolored, it would not be connected, all kinds of things would be going on. And so that's what it felt like to me, that there was a sense of depression, a sense of lack of connection, a sense of how do I make sense out of this? And even though I had this going on in my blender, I still, if you had seen me, you'd been very impressed because I had all the trappings of success. I lived in the perfect neighborhood, drove the right car. I was socially connected. I was very visible and on many of the boards in my community. So that was the piece that I had to deal with. Okay, well, I've been very successful based on external, but internally things are not connecting for me. And so I had to really do some deep work to figure out, so what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now, given this is where I am? And so what I realized is that I was having a deep sense of disappointment. You know how sometimes you have disappointment that's so deep, it almost feels like it goes all the way down to the ground. So I had this huge sense of disappointment because I felt like I've done everything that was asked of me to do. And still, I was not feeling valued or being treated equitable here in our country, in America. And so there was this like disappointment. What do I do now? I've gone to school. I've worked hard, treated people well. So what do I do? So that was the place where I really took another risk and really started to use the science of mind principles. Because what I realized is that those principles were tools that I'd never had opportunity to use before. And so through taking the foundation classes, the practitioner classes, and having a practitioner, the same practitioner for 7 years, going to ministerial school, and some of the other workshops, that I'd gotten clear there were tools that I could use that could redesign my life, that could help me do what it is that I was called here to do. And so Science of Mind gave me those tools, It also said that a lot of my work had been dealing with the stuff, things. But Science of Mind talked about consciousness and changing the way I think. And see, those were not things that I had been used to before. So with those tools, I felt like, wow, I have a new possibility of making a difference in the world. It's, as Dr. Holmes would say, the ability to change my thinking, to change my life was very present for me. And so when I got clear that I had some possibilities here, I had some new tools, some new skills, that's when I was guided to move to Virginia Beach to start a Science of Mind spiritual center. Really with creating a space in a traditional environment where people could have tools that they could transform their lives. And so I was very excited about that. And so I moved here in 2010 and was just, felt really supported by family members and other community members who helped to establish the Hampton Roads Center for Spiritual Living. It was a fun opportunity to do that. You can imagine starting off from scratch and what that means. The thing that we did lots of activities. And I remember going to our board and saying to the board, I would like to talk about race. What do you think about that? And the board said, well, Reverend Ruth, what about one Sunday a month? And so that's what I moved through to do that. And as I announced that to the community the following Sunday, one of the founding members said to me, Reverend Ruth, I don't think you should talk about race on Sunday. I don't think you should talk about race on Sunday. And so what I'll say now, given, I am in the United States and a lot of my references are the United States. So what I invite you to do, if there are things that work for you, ask what does that look like in Canada? If it doesn't, release it. So I appreciate your tolerance in doing that. And so it stuck with me. This person said to me, I don't think we should be talking about race on Sunday. And I was aware that many of my colleagues in this area was having the same conversation, that we should not be talking about race on Sunday. Now, I must admit, I've never seen that person again, even though he was a charter member. He left the center, and while I communicate with him, I've not seen him again. And I still stand grateful that that message is still in my head, and grateful for the family members and all the people who help us to establish the Hampton Roads Center for Spiritual Living, which is now the Agape East, which is led by Reverend Victoria Thomas. I remember when Ruth King, in her book, she talked about us bringing racism to church or colonialism to church. And he was like, what? And so that got me thinking, what would it be like if we did have churches be focused on dismantling, releasing colonialism, slavery, racism? What would that be like? I mean, we are a powerful community. Our vision is a world that works for everyone. What would it be like if the 400 units that we had a mission to use our tools to have people to change their thinking, to change how our world operates? I mean, what would that be like? And how magical that would be to have that kind of a focus on our consciousness in terms of how we can make a difference, how we can create a world that works for everyone. Because I don't know, certainly here, we've tried all the things that I think the visible things that we talk, we've tried the government, we've tried voting, we've tried lots of pieces. And what we know as New Thought people is there is a spirituality out there that we don't necessarily see, but we embrace through our thinking and through our consciousness. So what would it be like if we put all of our energies in that area to create a world where it works for everyone and everyone is feeling included, equitable, and belonging? What would that be like if that was the mission for all of the New Thought centers. It's just a thought, but it rings with me. We should not talk about race on Sunday. And so when we say not talk about race on Sunday, I honor that. But also I know we're talking about love. And in order to, wholeness is a part of love. So if we're willing to look at wholeness and love and connectedness, we can shift the planet. And one of our visions as a system has been, how can we reach more people? And so I must admit to you, I'm jazzed by the possibility that we could create a mission that says that we're willing to do what it takes to have people feel connected and involved. Dr. Holmes talks about setting the stage with a science of mind, principles of oneness. Ruth talks about using all of our gifts and talents to make a difference. One of the tools that we have used in Science of Mind has been visioning. And so if I think of my vision, I think of a world that works for everyone. And I might say, so what do I want to start doing? I want us to start walking hand in hand. I want us to live in peace. I want us all to be free. And the other part of the vision is, what do we need to stop? What about stop wishing that someday we would overcome? And then the next question, what gifts and talents do we already have? We have principles and practices that allow you and I to transform ourselves and transform the world. A place where we could have a holy uprising. So that's the piece that calls to me as we think about who we are and how powerful we are and how our tools have worked for each of ourselves and how we can start to use that tools to make a difference. So what would it look like if we were able to do that? What would that feel like for you? What would it feel like to see a world that begins with me or begins with you, that we're committed to changing our narrative? What would that look like? What would it feel like? And what would it sound like? So I've shared with you certainly a world that, changing the world, a world that, what it looks like and starting with me. And I'd just like to close with the message that Dr. Ruth King in her Mindful Race closed with. And she says, may we understand and transform racial habits of harm. May we remember that we belong to each other. May we grow in our awareness that what we do can help or hinder racial well-being. May our thoughts and actions reflect the world we want to live in and leave behind. May we heal the seeds of separation inherited from our ancestors in gratitude for this life. May all beings, without exception, benefit from our growing awareness. May our thoughts and actions be ceremonies of well-being for all races. May we honor being diverse racial beings among the human race and beyond race. And may we meet the racial cries of the world with as much wisdom and grace as we can muster. And so it is. So we just take this moment to be present to the breath of life, simply acknowledge this divine community and its amazing leadership, knowing that just where we are this afternoon, this morning, that we're in a divine space. We know that there is one life, and that life is God's, and that life is each of our lives right here, right now. So simply acknowledging that, knowing that, feeling the vibrations of that, and the energy and the openness that allows us to be present. So I'm simply knowing our divine connection, that our time together has been blessed, that new possibilities have been approached, that people have been able to be whole and heard and embraced, and knowing that all that needs to be done has been done in a way that allows us to leave from this space in a new possibility, in a new way of being, in a new opportunity. Grateful for the questions, grateful for all those who showed up to set this structure in place, knowing that as we leave this space, we arrive where we're going with a sense of ease and grace, that allows us to breathe and open and know that all of the things that are going on with us are taken care of. And so from a place of just great, amazing, joyful, loving wholeness, I say thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this center and its leadership, for I know it is for the highest and the best of all in the world. And so it is, and so we are.
And so it is. Thank you. So this is time for offering. Okay, so we're here. We create sacred opportunities for personal empowerment and collective transformation through wholehearted experience of truth and spirit. If you were inspired today, as I was, and I know many of you are from your comments, and today's music and the message, as well as our weekly and monthly programs, we gratefully receive your gifts, your tithes, your offering. All of this keeps us going, keeps us running, helps us pay our bills. So we really thank you ahead of time and rejoice in all of the offerings that come to us today. You can donate on our website at www.csl-whiterock.com/donate. Mail us a check, send us an e-transfer, gifts of all sizes, and are so helpful. Your contributions make all of this possible. Thank you so much. Please join me in declaring our prosperity affirmation. Divine love within blesses and multiplies all that I have, and all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is.